Externalization is a technique used by a writer to turn an abstract feeling into a concrete voice. This is done through the skillful use of language and imagery, and it is a term that we will discuss as it applies to the novel you are reading, Bless Me Ultima. In literature, externalization means to embody or make a feeling concrete and perceptible. This is a term that comes namely from psychology, where the psychoanalyst attempts to heal a patient by allowing them systematically to voice or give voice to remembered experience, usually grief or trauma. And the theory is that by giving these feelings voice, the patient can better understand those feelings and begin to cope with them. If you can just imagine this image of a hand working a seedling, a plant, touching the earth, looking at the greenery and the life that it represents, you can pretty much establish how a writer who doesn't have the advantage of the reader seeing this image would attempt to make it concrete, not only visual, but also through metaphors, attempt to establish what the person is feeling while they are doing this. And this is really interesting the way it happens in Bless Me Ultima. In these two passages, the protagonist, Antonio, who is 6 years old, experiences two different feelings. But remember that Antonio is 6 years old, so he does not have the voice to express whatever he is feeling. So it is up to the writer, as an older person, to give voice to that young child, in this case to Antonio, who is 6 years old. The first feeling in this paragraph is when he first encounters Ultima. He is in awe of this woman. He has seen her in his dreams. She is gothic, superhuman. She brought him into this world. And when he first sees her, all we can imagine him doing is holding her hand and looking at her. But through language, then we could take that abstract feeling and make it concrete. She took my hand, says Antonio, and I felt the power of the whirlwind sweep around me. Her eyes swept the surrounding hills, and through them I saw for the first time the wild beauty of our hills and the magic of the green river. My nostrils quivered as I felt the song of the mockingbird and the drone of the grasshoppers mingle with the pulse of the earth. The four directions of the llano met in me, and the white sun shone on my soul. The granules of sand at my feet and the sun and sky above me seemed to dissolve into one strange, complete being. Of course, this is not the language of a 6-year-old. It is the language of a skilled writer, taking his unspoken and abstract feelings and turning them into something concrete. If you analyze this for externalization, your job would be to first identify the overall feeling, And then look at the images, right? She took my hand. What did he feel? Power of whirlwind sweeping around me. That's not suffocating. That's almost comforting. Her eyes are sweeping nature, and through her eyes he sees color. He sees the beauty of the hills and the smoothness and the magic of the green river. Physically, his nostrils are quivering. The birds and his friendly environment is mingled with the drone of the grasshoppers and the pulse of the earth. It's all one comforting feeling and sound. And then at the end, the granules of sand at his feet and the sun and sky, everything dissolves into one strange, complete being. This is a feeling of Shanti, as we used to say in the 60s. It's a feeling that you are at home and that you are not afraid. Right? Notice how that changes when he is experiencing the death of Lupito, where when Lupito is shot in the darkness by the river, the same 6-year-old who was there because he wanted to be there for some reason, or the writer chose to put him there for pathos maybe, experiences Lupito asking him to bless him, and then the language expresses concretely what he felt. The dark shadows of the river enveloped me as I raced for the safety of home. It's no longer the power of the whirlwind comforting him. Enveloping now is a suffocating experience. All right? Branches whipped at my face and cut it, and vines and tree trunks caught at my feet and tripped it. Nature is no longer the beautiful, colorful, smooth river that he, concretizes, if you will, in the first paragraph. Look at the birds. Where over here you had the mockingbirds and the drone and the grasshoppers mingling with the pulse of the earth. Over here now you have disturbed sleeping birds with shrill cries and slapping wings hitting at his face. The horror of darkness had never been so complete as it was for me that night. Notice how the two paragraphs end in a sense of completeness, but one of awe and peace, and one of terror. If you look at the sound, you'll see that the sound used by Anaya in the first paragraph is smooth. This is called mellifluous, where there is an abundance of smoothness. She, esses, nostrils, mockingbirds, pulse, direction, sunshine, soul. That is mellifluous language, commonly associated with romance languages. If you look at this over here, the writer goes more into the sharp Germanic, Teutonic, sharp edge sounds. Dark, enveloped me, safety, whipped trunks, dark, complete, that night. Even in the sound, the creative talent of Rodolfo Anaya is attempting and successfully externalizing abstract feelings of a 6-year-old. Now, you actually have this perhaps more vividly when Father Burns externalizes the concept of eternity for the kids. He attempts to explain what'll happen to them if they go into sin and how they could be in hell for eternity, but in order for the kids to understand eternity, which is abstract, Father Burns provides a very detailed, imagistic passage on what eternity actually is. You can read this on your own, and you could see how successful this is. So giving voice is a technique, but it's also very important in a novel that deals with ethnic experience or the experiences of a community that is underrepresented, because many of the members of that unrepresented community may not have the voice. So externalization gives voice to the voiceless, to the feelings of a community that don't have a voice. We often hear, for example, that Dylan or the Beatles gave voice to the 60s generation, or that Salinger gave voice to a confused adolescence. Our question here, for the purpose of analysis, would be, how does Bless Me Ultima give voice to the Mexican American experience? And how do Mexican American readers respond to that experience? And is that different than the non-Mexican American readers? So this is externalization, one of the three techniques I've explained in this unit. And later these will be useful in writing the paper that is required for this unit.